Man, sometimes you got to realize, man, when somebody is talking directly about you, man. And we all know, man, we've seen a lot of narratives and we heard a lot of narratives that the Cleveland Brown media have put out there ever since this Brendan Sorsby situation has come to the forefront and come to the light. Now, we all know Brendan Sorsby was suspended from the NCAA, and then he appealed it, and then he got cleared to play, right? So now Texas Tech has parted ways with Brendan Sorsby. And Brendan Sorsby has entered his name into the supplemental draft. And we've heard all kinds of narratives about Brendan Sorsby as linked to the Cleveland Browns. And we heard that the Browns should take a bid on him in the supplemental draft. Now, you guys know Earl the Pearl, G. Bush's man, Earl the Pearl on 92.3 The Fan, to wake up with Earl the Pearl and Spencer German. Now, we've heard everything that Spencer German has said about Brendan Sorsby, right? And really, Spencer German has been advocating for Brendan Sorsby and the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns to take a chance on Brendan Sorsby. But he wants to sweep the gambling addiction under the rug. And I think Earl the Pearl had enough. So Earl the Pearl, on the Wake Up with Earl the Pearl and Spencer German, Earl the Pearl has some things to say, and he was talking directly at Spencer German, and Spencer German never realized that. And we'll talk about it coming up after this.
What's up, K-Sap? Yeah. James Ford, that's me. Let me talk to him. Let's get it.
I'm simply ball dropping, simply ball dropping. Chopping up these topics, man, I'm simply ball dropping. Driving coast to coast, making moves, ain't stopping. Driving coast to coast, making moves, ain't stopping. Nah.
Hey, let me put you on game. These other podcasts out here talking that shit, but ain't repping the same. It's my bro K-Sap, chopping up topics for your optics. From politics to your top picks. Tune in, you gotta watch this. Exclusive material for your radio stereo, pumping high definition. Stop what you doing and listen. We smashing all competition. You better jump on this wave. Somebody pass me a mic, man. I got something to say.
And now, your host of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast, the man behind the mic, K-Sap.
Well, guys, man, I'm here to tell you, man. We all been hearing it. We've been hearing everything that has been going on around this Spencer German and Earl the Pearl, conversation. And it's all predicated off of everything that Spencer German has said about Brendan Sorsby on the Browns should take a chance on him. And this notion of Brendan Sorsby coming in and being the savior for the Cleveland Browns is asinine. Now, I don't know what y'all feel about Brendan Sorsby as a quarterback, but I've seen the situation with Brendan Sorsby. I didn't seen him play at Cincinnati. I've seen Brendan Sorsby play, right? I've seen him go head-to-head with Shedeur Sanders, where Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes outdueled him. And Shedeur Sanders put up better numbers than, Brendan Sorsby. And the Colorado Buffaloes beat Cincinnati. And for Spencer German to think that Brendan Sorsby is the answer to this quarterback situation is a far reach. Now, we've seen their collegiate careers play out. And we've seen what Shedeur Sanders looked like in college, and we've seen what Brendan Sorsby looked like at Cincinnati. So there's no denying that Shedeur Sanders is a better quarterback than Brendan Sorsby. And this notion that they want to bring Brendan Sorsby in and bid on him in the supplemental draft when Todd Monken has already shut that down at the golf event talk about it's a slippery slope. We're not going down that route. And for Spencer German to keep advocating for Brendan Sorsby. So Earl the Pearl, he had to show you better than I can tell you. So Earl the Pearl, on the Wake Up with Earl the Pearl and Spencer German, man, Earl the Pearl let loose. And he let loose. And it was all toward Spencer German, but Spencer German didn't realize that Earl the Pearl was talking directly at him. So we're going to sit back and listen to it in its entirety so you guys can get the context on where Earl the Pearl was coming from. So sit back and enjoy.
Clear. I understand that the Cleveland Browns quarterback position is unsolved. Mm-hmm. I understand that is an issue that still needs to be corrected. But Brendan Sorsby ain't it. Brendan Sorsby won't solve this problem. And I think that it's a bit insensitive to Brendan Sorsby, and I think that it's a bit selfish, even though I understand of the why. The why is because the Browns quarterback situation is unresolved. And so until it is resolved, we keep taking as many swings at it as you can until you get it figured out. But this ain't it. And the reason why I call it insensitive and selfish is because I feel like that fans and some of us in the media is so thirsty for anybody to try to come and save the Cleveland Browns at the quarterback position outside of the quarterbacks that's currently on this roster, that they will continue to dismiss that Brendan Sorsby has an addiction. And when you talk about selective morality, that is something that we all have. There are things that, trigger us more often than not. And those tend to happen based on your life experiences, the things that you've witnessed or the things that you might have done yourself, right? And so when it comes to something like this and you get to talking about addiction, I think that's a whole different ball game. I think that's a whole different playing field. And I think it's unfair to continue to push this narrative that the Cleveland Browns should be the team that gives Brendan Sorsby a chance, knowing that he has a gambling addiction when you look at our track record. What bothers me the most is the fact that I feel like people are speaking out of both sides of their neck. Like, you can't have it both ways. And I think it's because people don't like the quarterbacks that's currently on the roster, and they want somebody to come to try to save the Cleveland Browns immediately, and they refuse to see that that's not going to happen. That's exactly how I feel. So what do I mean by talking out of both sides of their neck? You got people saying, you should just start Shedeur. See how this thing play out, because you got to see what you got in Shedeur Sanders. And if it don't play itself out, then you sitting at the top of the draft and you got an opportunity to draft one of these quarterbacks that's coming out that should be an amazing class. But then turn around and saying now all of a sudden, since Brendan Sorsby is the latest hot topic that the people think that's going to come and save us, that, you know what, you should kick the tires on here. And those are some of the same people, man, that has bashed Andrew Berry left and right. Wow. Every time he drafted, signed, or traded for a player that had any kind of baggage. That's my issue. And it's like, when people look at addiction, if it's not tied to substance abuse or anything sexual, they totally dismiss it. And when people constantly push this narrative that should the Browns kick the tires on drafting him in the supplemental draft, and I see that you constantly dismiss the fact that this man got an addiction, it tells me that you've never dealt with it yourself, or you're not that familiar with people who has dealt with it. Because if you were, you would know that the consequences can be very extremely or even deadly sometimes.
Yeah, I think for me, part of the conversation starts there, which is, yes, he has an addiction, but I think that everybody, I certainly, maybe not everybody, but I certainly think, like you and I in this room, think that he, just because he has that addiction doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a chance to still play football or have a football career.
Everybody in life deserves a second chance.
For sure. For sure.
Get him, Earl.
And that's, so here's the thing.
Look at Earl.
I've said from the beginning, and this comes from what you mentioned as well, like I'm a firm believer that when you don't have a quarterback, you don't have your quarterback room resolved, you don't have that answer yet, you should always be willing to throw resources at it. That's how I feel. And so from the beginning of this conversation, when it was, this could happen, then he was getting the injunction, he was going to go back to Texas Tech, and then this week it spiraled into now he's actually going back into the supplemental draft. I have kept firm on there are risks with potentially landing this player. And you got to keep that in mind. and that should frame the level of resource you're willing to use. So these people who are out here like, he's a first-round talent, you should throw like a second-round pick on him. I'm not saying that. I have never said that. My entire thing has been the highest I would go is a fourth-round pick, because I believe that you should throw resources at the quarterback position. Because to me, if you throw a fourth-round pick on it, and this is a guy that next year was going to get drafted in the first round, second round, well, hey, you got great value then for the guy.
And you heard what they had to say, and you heard what Earl to Pearl was saying. And then at a point, Spencer German was trying to defend himself. He couldn't get out that bag. Earl had a headlock on him. Because go back and listen to some of the things that he has been saying. Spencer German has been saying a lot of things about this Brendan Sorsby, giving him a chance, and the Browns should take a look at him. Same thing that Mary Kay was saying. Same thing that Tony Grossi was saying. Same thing that some of these insiders were saying, and the Cleveland media. But Todd Monken has come out and already put all that stuff to bed. So they got to start listening to what Todd Monken is saying, because they think Todd Monken is playing. Todd Monken is standing 10 toes down. And you know what's crazy is Earl, his whole soliloquy, he was talking about Spencer German. And Spencer German just didn't realize that. But the way Earl was pimp talking, he didn't understand that. So Earl had a lot of things to get off his chest, man, and he got it off, man. He let loose on Spencer German, man. Y'all get down in the comment section.
I see everyone in the comment section. #salute. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you will know every time I drop a hot banger. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot, tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And that will wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host, the man behind the mic, K-Sap. Catch you on the next one.